our bonus episode of the Crowdy Files with Lucy Chamberlain. We're really excited to get back on to our bonus episodes, and we have got a cracker for you today. From safe to stand out. So how to position yourself in a crowded market. And we couldn't think of anyone better to come in and help us unravel this pickle of a conversation than you, Lucy Chamberlain.
Thank
So
you.
thank you so much for coming
Thank you.
along, and we can't wait to dive into the conversation.
Me
Yeah.
too. Thank you so much for having me.
So let's talk about this elephant in the room then. The market. Briefly explain to us what the market, so specifically for the Crowdy Files, it's going to be administrative, business support, operational support market. So what is happening? And the market's tight, we know.
Yeah.
We know that already. Job titles are still inconsistent.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a lot of noise about how to stand out, but always very little clarity in what that actually means. So
Okay.
let's hear from your perspective at the moment on the market, the job situation, the titles, the clarity. What are you seeing at the moment?
Okay. Well, that's quite a lot, Jodie.
Yeah.
Should we start? Should we
Break it
start
down.
with? Should we break it down?
down.
Should we start with the market? Essentially, we are experiencing, I think, a unique collaboration of circumstance that means that the job market is unbelievably challenging right now. And I want anyone that's listening to this to deeply understand that it's not a you problem. If you are experiencing challenges around your search, it's a we challenge. And I've been in this market in London for 27 years. So I've experienced lots of different challenging spaces, but this is like one we have never seen before. Geopolitically, economically, changes in employment law, taxation, AI, dare I say the word. But together, what this has meant is that employers are extremely nervous to hire, and people are equally extremely nervous to make a move. And those two things together, along with budget constraints and people looking for cost-saving opportunities, which has meant restructures, has meant that permanent hiring in London is 43% lower than anticipated.
Wow.
And so it is a dramatic shift in what was expected and anticipated and what the reality is. And as a result of that, we are seeing a lot of redundancies, longer term unemployment, and a lot of difficulty for people that have perhaps got more movement on their CV or less conventional CVs or wanting to make career moves. It has been unbelievably tough. And so that is the current state of affairs. The good news is, one thing I will say is that having experienced everything from 9/11, the dot-com crash, through to 2008 and COVID, is these things pass. It will not be like this forever. It's little comfort to anybody that needs a role right now, but I do know that it won't be like this forever because it never is. So optimism and faith are always deeply important.
And upskilling and keeping on top of everything in the
Oh,
background,
yes.
right? So what can we
Oh, yes.
do in the background while this is all going on, especially for the job seekers right now? I guess that the people you're speaking to on a daily basis are
Yeah.
in that mode of, what have you got? What's happening today? You know, is there anything we can do as a profession to kind of simmer that panic down? And how can we position ourselves to stand out in this crowded market?
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, I think there's two different aspects to this. We've got Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which the baseline is security financially. And so for anyone that is experiencing insecurity financially, I can understand that panic. Of course, what I would recommend for anybody that has an immediate urgency is to define a certain amount of time you're going to spend job hunting a day. Because that gives you the energy, the focus, and the capability and the capacity to really proactively define time to create your search, to define time where you can focus on your search, but where you're also doing other things as well. And I think that that's really important so that energetically your energy is in the right place. But more broadly speaking, what should people be doing? Well, I think there's three things that I would focus on during a time like this, which will help stand out and help you to be relevant, not just for now, but for the future. And I like to think of those as perhaps focusing on 3 C's. So competence, courage, compassion. So if we look first at competence, so that is building our knowledge, and knowledge builds confidence. So confidence is a skill. It's not something you have or don't have. it's an output. And we know that learning is one of the key ways that you can start to build confidence. And what sits as confidence's best sister is acts that help to build our self-esteem, deeply important whilst job hunting. And so learning, again, helps to build self-esteem, because self-esteem is an action. It's not something we have
Yeah.
or don't have. It's doing things that get us on our own side. And so as a result of that, I would say look at ways that you can learn that feeds your soul. So things that you do feel passionate about. So if you're thinking, I should do this or I ought to do that, shoulding on ourselves is a really de-energizing way to build our competence. So
Yeah.
I would encourage you to look at the areas of skill that you have and to go out and find 5 to 10 job descriptions of roles that really excite you. What is contained in those job descriptions that you are excited by that you could go out and learn about? Whatever that may be for you, and it's going to be different for every single person. But I always say go out and find job descriptions that light you up. Deep dive into those, the skills, what are they looking for in terms of outcomes in that role? And then from there, write down 5 or 6 things that you're seeing perhaps form a pattern. And then it's books, it's podcasts, there's so much free stuff out there, for
There
anybody
is.
that does not have budget to invest, don't worry about it. There is tons of stuff
We really
online.
advocate for micro learning,
Yeah, we
and
do.
there's so many different ways you can dip into learning and development without having to go straight to a huge conference or straight to
Yeah.
even one-on-ones or anything like that. There's so many different ways of consuming, isn't there?
Oh,
I've recently was looking for a job, and I found it was so overwhelming. You're going through platforms, you're looking at job searching, and some of the job descriptions, it looks like a copy and paste. So that is sometimes sort of disheartening, and sometimes the price isn't, or the salary they're offering isn't what you would like. So
yes.
how do you go through all that? Is there a trick that you do that you go?
Oh, okay. So, I mean, it's obviously been a very long time since I've looked for a job, because I was 13 years in one company and then I set up my own business. So I have deep empathy for anybody that is looking for a new role, but I would build relationships.
Definitely.
So that would be my starting point. Now, I'm a big advocate for networking. However, I also know that networking for many people feels also equally overwhelming. And if anybody's ever had an experience of difficulty with groups, or perhaps has had experience of bullying, actually networking can be
Trigger.
very, very
Yeah.
much so.
Yeah.
So I would find recruiters. This is one of the aspects. I'm not advocating just for recruiters, but I would find recruiters that you can build a relationship with, a partnership with. I would find smaller group settings where you can find safety in numbers, and build that network so that people are talking about you in rooms that you are not in. I would then focus, I would absolutely use LinkedIn,
Yeah.
because ultimately that is the
The CV.
primary
That's where we
focus,
live.
Yeah.
right? And so I would apply for roles, but what I'm noticing more and more is that we are receiving multiple applications for roles at C&C that require completely different skill sets. But you'll find perhaps one candidate applying for 20 different positions, and I'm afraid it doesn't go in your favor. So tailor your applications, even though it takes that little bit more time, because again, you are much more likely to receive a phone call or a reach out as a result of that. Take a look at what's in that job description, apply it where possible, unless it's a cut and paste job, of course. So for me, it's relationships, it's focus, it's also being in groups where people are going to support and advocate for you. And if you are going into a networking group, let's say Jodie and Craig are organizing something, and I know that you guys run amazing events, and they're smaller, they're more curated,
They are, yeah.
they're
Yeah.
focused on really giving value back to the profession. And to reach out to Jodie and Craig ahead of time, let them know you're coming. Can you help? Is a great way
Oh, wow.
to build
Yeah.
a relationship. So I always say, if you're going to an event, you're a bit nervous, reach out to the organizers. How can I help you? I'm coming. I mean, I am always, if somebody ever says, how can you help me? Like,
Oh,
great,
yes,
I have a
please.
million jobs. So,
Yeah, that's a great line.
I think
It
that
is
really
great.
helps
It does.
to build relationships as
does.
well with key people in the profession.
That's exactly what I was facing when I was looking for a job. I was on so many online sort of hunting for job applications. But I found when I found somebody who was an agent that actually spoke to me and knew who I was, they
Yeah.
were able to fight in my corner by putting me forward for a position and giving me that seat at the table, which is really important. That foot in the door, and that's
Yeah.
that person was really sort of encouraging me and giving me some guidance. But when you're on the applications on the online, you don't get any of that.
No, and I think that is extremely challenging. And I know that even from the other side of the table at the moment, I probably have about 100 requests a day for a phone
Wow.
call or catch up or can I help or can you pick my brains? And there's just not enough of me to be able to do
Mm.
that.
Yeah.
However, if you reach out and say, and you're really clear, this is the process I've been through, these are my concerns. Could you just give me a guidance on this specific thing? Or is there one thing I could do? I will always be able to respond to things like that. So
Okay.
get very clear on what it is you need from somebody
Yeah.
and offer them that clarity so that they can also, with their own workload, manage supporting you as well as delivering what they need to be delivering.
It's really important to kind of touch on that subject as well, because where we're in that panic mode of job searching, we're thinking in a position of me, me, me. What can you
Yeah.
do for me? Help me. But we forget about what's on the other side of of LinkedIn DMs and the email.
Yeah.
And you're only one person. Collectively, you're a team, but it
And
must be
recruiters
really
work
challenging.
unbelievably long
Mm.
hours. The
Yeah,
burnout rate in recruitment is one of the highest of any
Wow.
I can
professions.
imagine.
And I think that so for me, where I always want to start is looking for the similarities, not the differences, entering into any conversation with compassion for the other person and assume good intent. I think we all want the same outcomes
Yeah.
and we're all doing the very best we can with what we have at the time and what's available to us. So I think for me, assuming good intent is really helpful and acknowledging the fact that we have no idea what might be going on for somebody else at any given time.
True.
Networking simply works, and that's one of my mottos and
Yeah.
one of our
Yeah.
kind
I
of
love
mottos that's
networking.
evolved over time as well. And I'm a confident introvert, so those settings for me were really challenging at the beginning. And what I
Mm.
would say to touch and build on that is it does get a little bit easier over time. It's not always comfortable, and it's not still not
Yeah.
150% comfortable for me now, but making that contact with people ahead of time really does make you feel that you're not walking through a stone cold door. So that is a really good top tip that I would recommend, is at least prepping. Like
Hmm.
sometimes you go somewhere new and you want to just check it out on Google Maps first, and
Yeah.
you zoom in, you do street view, you want to see the front door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Treat networking the same and
Yeah.
pick your groups wisely. I often suggest to my mentoring clients as well, what do you want from it? Are
Mm.
you looking just for community? Are you looking for training and development? Are you looking for something else? Are you looking for connections from venue finders?
Mm.
Make sure what you're putting your time and energy into
Yeah.
is actually what you want, because there's
Yes.
hundreds of networking groups in the UK
Yeah.
alone, let alone worldwide,
Oh
right?
gosh, and
So
I think
picking
that
them wisely.
I think EAs and PAs are bombarded with courses to buy, groups they ought to
Mm,
join, networking, and I think there's a lot of value in all of those things, but
absolutely.
picking them wisely
Yeah.
and not feeling that you should be at all of the
Everywhere.
everywhere.
Yeah.
But I think it's not just about what you can get; it's about what, and that is definitely one half of it. But the other half is what can you bring?
Give. Yeah. What
Yeah.
can you
What
give?
can you bring? And I
Mm.
think sometimes I'll say that question to somebody and they'll immediate response is, well, I don't have anything. What's a great film you've recently watched? What's a great book you've read?
Yeah.
Brilliant podcast. Or perhaps you've done an online course that was wonderful, that was free, that
Mm.
share that.
Yeah.
What are who else are you connected with that potentially could form great bridges with other people? And so normally often people start with, oh, I don't know, I haven't got anything to bring. But when we really look at drilling down into what you've watched, what you've seen, what you've learned, who you know, then there's always three things that everyone has to bring.
So let's move on then from that topic
Yeah.
back into the hiring
Yeah.
and job searching. And I want to link this into personal branding as well. Is there a difference between a strong candidate and a visible one? What are employers that you work with really noticing?
Oh, interesting. So I think visibility and strong candidates can be two different things, or they can be the same thing. It depends again on I suppose what the driver is for the person that's deeply visible, or a strong candidate that perhaps doesn't need the visibility, but has focused a lot on their career and how they present that career. a strong candidate, let me share with you a little bit about what I think is most important. So, one is the courage to own your brilliance. And it does take courage. And it does take stepping into understand it's not arrogance. It's actually owning our power. And power doesn't mean all the things we think it means. Power means with choice, having choice. So, choose to own your capability. Clients are looking for a demonstrated additive value on CVs, so impact-led CVs. They are looking for individuals that on their CV list key achievements, perhaps, or list learning or list development, list growth in roles, that are able to articulate what they're able to bring, the value add, the culture add, the challenges. And I always encourage anybody to really look at, there's something called the Carl response. Look at the challenges you face, the action you've taken, the results that came as a result of the action, and the learning. That is the most important part of that. What did you
get out
learn
of
from
it?
that challenge?
Yeah.
How did
Yeah.
you grow? How did you develop? How could you help an organization in the future because of that learning? And having that clarity on CVs, there's something called dynamic language. So that's also really important. If you Google dynamic language,
I
loads will
will
come
write
up.
that one down.
But using words like empowered, using words that are evocative, emotive, that give a sense of who you are as a person, what matters to you most, and your values weaved in throughout your
Mm.
CV. That matters. We still see so many CVs with typos, mistakes, incorrect use of capitals, bad layout. I mean, come on, this is like the first window. So let's at least get
Yeah.
that right.
But
Yeah.
are you secretly liking that as opposed to the super over-polished AI version?
I can spot an AI CV from a
Really?
Yeah.
mile off.
Really?
Yeah.
But is it nice to get a little bit of a human error touch every now and
I know
again?
exactly. And do you know what? Gosh, I mean, I think another year's time, it's probably going to be almost imperceptible, the differences. But the authenticity piece all adds up. So it's who you are online, who you are on the phone, how you present your CV. It's how we think. It's what we say. It's what we do. And it's that visibility piece that you were then referencing, Jodie, in terms of how that backs it up. Every single employer now checks a LinkedIn profile pretty much. So does it ring true? What's on your CV? What's out there online?
Yeah.
Yeah, it matters.
But when you're in an interview and does somebody really come across to you? Is it the storytelling, the unique way of how they bring themselves across, how they are demographically sort of being able to fit in the position you're looking for? Is that what you're looking at in an interview in person?
I think for me, the most important thing is emotional intelligence.
Okay.
Or now there's a big focus on emotional agility over emotional intelligence. But emotional intelligence is the capability to listen and to respond
Yeah.
and to bring the very best version of yourself. So I think that bringing your warmth, your positivity, bringing your
Energy.
energy,
Yeah.
and I think that also just learning to really hear what someone's saying and respond
Yeah.
accordingly.
I find that sometimes people are answering the question before you even finishing
Yeah.
when you're in an interview. And it's like, hang on, I'm not finished yet.
So
So,
true,
yeah.
right? It's
It
so
is.
true. And a lot
It
of
is.
that is nerves. So actually part of performing brilliantly in interviews is learning how to self-regulate. How can I bring my system into regulation?
Breathing properly, isn't
Breathing,
it? Just
feeling
a,
your sit bones in the seat, your feet on the floor, and just acknowledging, I'm okay, you're okay.
yeah.
We all have equal worth and
Yeah.
value.
Yeah.
And that matters a lot to
And
be able
because
to
I also
breathe.
find that sometimes you need to have, you're a book without a cover. So you need to have that cover for you to show
Yeah.
how amazing you are.
Yeah.
You can't just say, well, this is what I've got. And this is all my information. This is all the skills I've got. You need to bring the cover too.
You do.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm a big advocate, and my area of expertise is personal brand on
Definitely,
LinkedIn.
yeah.
When assistants ask me, how do I navigate having a personal brand in the office and having my personal brand? For me, the two should be blended, because that's the ultimate comfort in being 100% authentic, is when you can come across the same way, like you said, and
Yeah.
avoid that career catfishing
Yes.
as well. That's
yes.
a big thing, isn't it?
Yes, it
Well,
is.
trying to decipher, which version of Jodie is popping up today?
Yeah.
If you can be authentically comfortable with showing your true self, say on LinkedIn particularly, that's going to make your content creation, your comments, what you get involved with, so much more pleasant and
Yes.
easier for everyone. So personal brand is personal.
It is. And if you are not yet at the place where you feel comfortable with knowing that what other people think of you is none of your business, because that's what it ultimately takes when you're going to be visible, then cheerlead others. So make
Okay.
sure that everything is presented beautifully on LinkedIn that's representative of you. But if you don't yet feel that you want to put yourself out there,
There's
which
other
I also
ways.
respect,
Yeah.
there's other
There's
ways.
other ways. Comment thoughtfully.
Yeah.
Yes.
I always say, you know,
Post and
LinkedIn
ghost,
is
yeah, should
your
not do.
No.
LinkedIn is your shop window. It's your landing page
Yeah.
to the world. And if your shop window isn't kind of fully dressed, fully
Mm.
optimized, people are going to scroll, flick past it really easily. So part of that is coming full circle to, you know, strong candidates. Are they visible? Are they strong in all areas? I would like to think it's a big mix and a melting pot of everything.
Of course it is. And I think ultimately there's plenty of candidates that we place that are certainly not posting on LinkedIn every day, but there's congruence with all of the ways they represent themselves.
Yeah.
On the phone, in person, in a conversation, in a light conversation on email.
Yeah.
There's a consistency and a congruence, and we do all have candidates in recruitment that we are nervous to phone, that we're nervous to hear from,
Yeah.
and or that we don't know what version of them we're going to get one day to the next. And actually, I think for me, how we show up should feel predictable.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the
Consistent.
yeah, I was just about to say that. That's the
Constantly.
difference between frequency and consistency. Are you consistently showing up online as you with
Yeah.
your, you know, messaging? I try to stick to my, you know, pillars of what I get involved with and I talk about. So it makes it easier for me to kind of stay consistent when you have those pillars and your strengths of
Yeah.
what you like to talk about or even just self-advocate.
I think you do
is-
that brilliantly, by the
Oh,
way.
thanks.
I really
I
do.
thought it was just my mum looking, but
No,
no.
no, I think you do it absolutely brilliantly.
Well, we've got a listener question, haven't we?
Yes,
We've
we
always
have.
got listener questions.
I was
So
going to play, yeah.
we're going to play a listener question. We would love if you could help us answer this one.
Christian, you ready?
Hi, Crowley.
Ready?
I've been with the same company for 9 years, and I love my role, but lately I've been told I'm not visible enough by leadership. I don't want to leave, so how do I become more visible without coming off as desperate or trying too hard?
Oh,
that's a
fabulous
good one.
question.
Desperate. Yeah, that's the misconception. Is
Yeah.
visibility looking like you're clawing for attention? I don't think so, but please answer.
I think you're absolutely right. I think actually what we're talking about is the inner critic and imposter syndrome
Yes.
getting in the
Yes,
that's
way.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a bit like a really overprotective parent. It wants the very best for you, but it keeps you totally stuck.
Yeah.
And when we think about stepping into our vulnerability, but was where it's all of the juicy stuff is, all of the growth is, often the imposter syndrome will come up. And that's when we'll say things like, I don't want to appear desperate or arrogant or too much. Actually, I think small actions lead to big results.
Definitely.
So I would be looking for small ways to start to create that change. I'd be volunteering for a project. I'd be sharing back my achievements or the impact that I'd created over a month. I would be volunteering to sit in a meeting because I think I might have
True.
some knowledge that I can gain in order that I can create more impact. There are so many little ways at work that we can create visibility. Mentoring somebody more junior, taking people out for a coffee when they start, volunteering to be part of an onboarding process. There are many, many ways visibility can be increased without what people perceive as visibility these days. And there's TikTok and photographs and selfies and this kind of. I think everyone feels that they're going to have to start exposing
Yeah.
themselves, and that's not what visibility
Visibility
is.
isn't about shouting the loudest, is it?
Yeah. I think if you're, for example, just hypothetically, if your boss had left and you've been working for them for like 9 years
Yeah.
and he's gone, how's anybody going to know what your strengths are? How's anybody going to know what you can do and achieve? Because only your boss knew what you could do. And now he's gone. Nobody's going to be advocating for you to go forward. So you're not going to get that promotion. You're not going to get, all those sort of items that you were looking for. So I think you need to be seen. A lot of times I'm in the office and I'm like, oh, there's a new year. I know she's been here 12 years. It's like, oh, really? Oh, I've never seen her before. And that's a perfect example of being invisible because she, finishes this time, leaves, comes in this morning, does her work, puts her head down and leaves and doesn't integrate within the company.
Yeah.
I've got a favourite phrase actually, which I help assistants with coaching, getting them through that invisibility piece and their introversion as well, because it comes from a place of me being introverted at times. You
Yeah.
I know you'd say, yeah, right.
I'm
but
extrovert. She's
Right.
introvert.
I am. I
Interesting. It's
am
why
in
you
my
two,
own
that yin
way.
and yang works so
Yeah.
well, right?
Yeah, but when I started thinking and reframing visibility in this way, everything felt nice. It's
Mm,
not about look at me, look at me. It's about look what I can do for you.
yeah.
And you kind of build a different perception of visibility.
It has to come from a place of service.
Yeah.
And those that need to hear what you have to say will find you, you know,
Yeah.
that what's meant for us will find us. And I think that ultimately for me, every time I put out a post and the algorithm is a bit of a devil, because using photographs, things like that, it much prefers. That's the bit where often I can feel a bit like, ugh. However, needs must. But I always think, could this be of service to
Adding
somebody?
value.
Adding
Yeah.
value.
Yeah,
What's
and
the
that
value
changes
add?
everything. Get out of your own way. Get out. It's not about you. It's about what you can offer.
And people like to see themselves in you
Mm,
as
That's
not
true.
just a content creator, not just a founder, but as EAs as well, as leadership like to see a little bit of them in you so they can
course.
like build that rapport and trust. So for me, visibility shouldn't be feared. Don't think it's, the TikTok generation and
No.
being influencer style-esque. It can be as little and impactful as just showing your wins,
Yeah.
showing where you added value, showing where you saved time and money. If you
Mhm.
drop a one-liner on a Friday afternoon to say, how was your week? Great. How was yours? It was amazing because
That's-
I saved the company,
And
£500
you
in
light
time
somebody
this
up
week.
when you say when
Yeah.
you share that. You light somebody up. And when I get a message from Anna on a Friday, which just said, which is a one-liner of a piece of impact she's created, I can feel I get all the fuzzy feels. You know, it's great.
And that's what I do in the office environment. I bring that kindness and
Yeah.
empathy, because everybody knows how, they can't remember who you were, but they know how you made you feel.
Always.
And I think that empathy and that kindness within whether your boss or your colleagues, I find they always go, I'm going to ask Craig because, why don't you ask Craig? Because he does this. That's sort of, and that's another way of being visible.
That's impact creation, right?
Yes.
Right there. Small acts of courage like that.
Yeah.
So with our listener then, we're going to say that not being visible enough does not mean you need to jump into the job market. It doesn't mean the worst. It might feel absolutely horrible prospect to think I've got to put myself out there. I've got to start, networking internally, but there's always small, tiny steps.
It is
So
a gift as well, Judy. One
it's a
quick
gift,
thing is
yeah.
when you get a piece of feedback like that, it is said with good intent. It's said with a desire for this person to go on and be more successful in the organization. And we are not good at absorbing feedback. We like the
Yeah.
pats on the back, but we're not so good at actually, here's an opportunity for growth.
Yeah.
That's all that is. It's an opportunity. It's a chance.
It's a steer, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm reading into that executive wants the EA to be more visible so they can put them forward
I agree.
for something bigger and better. So I would lean into it, ask more questions. How do you envisage me being more visible? What's visible to you? Question, 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 and listen
that.
for response.
So what's one question we can ask our listeners to do this week?
One key takeaway.
Yeah.
One key takeaway I have had from this episode that I know has helped me tenfold is don't get the visibility confused with launching yourself into the stratosphere of influencer, if you like. Personal branding is personal.
Yeah.
It will get you places you had never imagined possible.
I
And
love
that all wraps
So
up with the
mine would
networking
be,
as well.
to get to understand my exec, I would ask, what are your goals? And how can I align my goals with your goals? Because then the work relationship becomes so much easier because you're both striving to be for the same goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. And I think for me, I'd go back to that courage, competence, and compassion. How can I be more courageous? What's one small thing I can do? What's one courageous act? What's one way I can be more compassionate towards myself? Because we're far more likely to be courageous when we're also equally compassionate towards ourselves. And competence, what's one way I can build my skill this week or a skill this week?
Wow.
And position yourself in a crowded market. Last word.
Own your brilliance.
Yes.
Yes.
Boom. There we go.
Mic drop.
Yeah, own your brilliance.
Yeah.
I think that's an amazing one-liner to end this bonus episode on. Absolutely thrilled that we got through a huge topic.
Yes.
Definitely.
Hopefully to time, but
Yeah.
thank you so much for everyone who's tuning in and listening. If you do have any questions, please get in touch with Craig or I. DM on LinkedIn,
Yeah, they are.
various ways, or through our
Emails.
website.
Email.
We will be open to any communication and building our bank of listener questions as well.
Thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
coming. It's been
Absolute
amazing.
pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.